Finally, with the remaining 2 minutes, we want to kind of tell you, kind of the best way to get started. Now, some of this certainly, we are, RPA is a part of our business, but we want you to have tools so you know how to think about RPA independent of us. And so to start that off, we'll give you some thoughts on methodology. And you'll see the two elements up there of kind of how we see the maturity model of intelligent automation. So first, you're going to initialize that by establishing some kind of a capability internally. And that's just saying, you know what, we're going to try RPA. We think it makes sense. We're going to prototype those efforts and find some success. You could think about it as kind of an early sprint in a product development life cycle to demonstrate some value and to provide a demo, if you will. After that, you're going to be executing. You're working with other business sponsors, stakeholders. So say you started with finance, maybe you go to HR, maybe you go to IT, but you're looking for wins across the business. And then finally, once you've gotten to a point where you have it in place, now it's about optimization. How can you improve processes, improve transaction time, reduce costs, scale, and so forth. And so we find that in the clients that we advise, that the best success comes from just embracing at the start of the journey that, number one, it is a journey, and two, that it's going to take time. Certainly, you got to crawl, walk, run, but it's okay to look for some quick wins. You don't have to bite off the whole thing, but you have to kind of understand and embrace whether RPA is an operational capability and a tool set that you need in the business to help you. So kind of go ahead and dip your toe in, but just know that you're ready to dive all in once you find that win, if that makes sense. And so from a PL standpoint, on the bottom there, you can kind of see, how we typically engage. We do a lot of advisory work these days, for what it's worth, just kind of, providing an absolutely independent perspective on RPA. We're passionate about it because we see the benefits, but at the same time, we want clients to get a technology-agnostic view of what makes sense. And so we spend a lot of time advising kind of industries and also clients on where to deploy these technologies and AI and things like that. And then, kind of say outsourced efforts for implementation, scale, establishing and supporting a center of excellence. That's the typical model that you'll see with service providers like us. And in some cases, or in a large case, what you see among companies that have embraced fully RPA, they go on a similar journey internally. So going quickly, I realize I'm 1 minute past my goal there. Typically, the best way to get started, you got to think about it from a strategy standpoint. What's the true kind of benefit? What's the ROI? What's the cost benefit? And to look at that and quantify it out of the gate. And something where you realize you can get a quick win to demonstrate value. But to understand, you've got to look at it with a broader strategy of, is this something that can be inserted in the business from a broader standpoint? RPA, if it's just one process within one department and that's it, honestly, the ROI on that is pretty limited. It's the synergies among departments and different functions and processes. That's where you get the real benefits. Prototyping is a big thing. That's what you'll hear a lot about is, hey, we like something, we think it can be a benefit, but let's just go prove it out first. Let's spend a few weeks just trying to demonstrate that it can work, that it provides value, and then maybe we'll decide to actually kind of, get on a roadmap and deploy it. So one way to think about it. And I would say these are equal recommendations. If you go on this journey yourselves internally, our recommendations would be the same journey. And just a couple quick kind of highlights. When we do opportunity assessments, this is kind of some examples of kind of how we put the assets together to kind of plot out which processes look like good wins, what the cost benefits are, things of that nature. And then finally, to kind of give you some ideas of what the typical pricing is. And this is industry-wide. This is not us. This is really kind of industry pricing for licenses. You're looking at anywhere from, I guess it could be as low as, depending on the tool set, of about 10,000 a license, 10 to 15 or so per robot on average. Some RPA vendors will have you pay for the tool itself as well. It kind of depends, but that's about the average of about 10 to 15,000 per robot is what you're looking at. And our recommendation is to start small. Look at 2 to 3 processes. Start if you can with a handful of robots to attack that. Demonstrate value, and then scale it from there. Hosting, not a big concern in our experience. Depends on your environment, how regulated you are, and whether you open up systems for the cloud or not. but that's just the same as you would consider an employee. If you allow a remote worker to access your systems, the robot can do the exact same thing. So with that in mind, to close this up, 4 questions. We'll leave this up there and we'll get the questions ready. I know, Caitlin, you have some questions.
Yes, Chad, thank you so much for that. I do actually have one question that Lauren is going to address. So Lauren, do you want to go ahead and tee us up?
Yeah, thanks. I was just looking at a few that and trying to call them into the most relevant ones. One that came in is referencing the financial examples that we gave in kind of back office processes. And so the question is, how does this work if some of the source information that you want to deal with, say in invoicing or whatever, is a PDF or other non-structured information?
I'm sorry, you read this. Okay.
What do you?
Yeah. So in terms of OCR, that's something that we certainly see, a lot of today. So what we showed you today was an Excel structured, spreadsheet, and certainly that's not always going to be the case, right? You can have PDFs, you can have scanned images. So all these tools and the one we showed you have built-in OCR capabilities as well to extract data out of unstructured data sources, PDFs, everything from reading scanned driver's licenses to reading scanned purchase orders or invoices. If you get to a point where, like in banking, we find that you need more sophisticated kind of handwriting recognition and things like that, there are additional third-party tools, like Abby is one that's popular that can do a great job of reading and learning from handwriting. So, but to think of it this way, the robot needs to read it just like a human would. OCR is a great way to do it. It's fully integrated and something we see a lot of.
Sure, thank you. Another question, how mature do your processes need to be in terms of how well defined they are in order to get started with RPA?
Good question. So, as part of a typical process, you're going to find you're going to go through a process of discovery and definition anyway. And so, certainly if the process is already defined and you've got a lot of documentation, that expedites the process. But I wouldn't use that to kind of stop you from going down a path of looking at RPA, because one of the main benefits of the tool is, going back to what we showed you with the demo, that process did not exist. None of those processes existed in a documented way until it was put in the tool. So in effect, the tools themselves become kind of a representation and documentation of the process, where previously there might not have been any. So the more you have, the better, but not a disqualifier for moving forward.
Yep, okay. Another one is a couple on sort of how to get started, and I think you covered this near the end, but one's kind of interesting in terms of just what are we seeing as the best practice for how to get started but think long term, and do you go the path of doing a tactical kind of quick win versus thinking strategically and more big bang? Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'd say going back to here, where if there's no current kind of investment in RPA and there's still a lot of questions of whether it's going to provide value, we're big fans of go into it with a strategy in mind. I think if you go into purely tactical and treating it as kind of an IT tool where you're going to try to automate something, I think it's missing the benefit. The benefit is the broader organizational benefits that it can provide. And so it doesn't mean you have to bite all that off in the beginning, but you have to at least kind of understand how to do it long term. What's going to happen when it's in production? Who's going to operate it and how to manage it? The department's going to take advantage of it. Because again, the more it's leveraged, the more valuable it becomes, because instead of one process, one tool, 50 processes, one tool, that's the kind of scale you're talking about. So bottom line is, recommendation would be look at it, understand it, embrace or not whether RPA is the right kind of go forward path, put a strategy in place to say it is, but then look for the tactical wins. That's okay. And if you're spending months just kind of producing those tactical wins, to demonstrate value and kind of cheerlead it and internally for all the different stakeholders, that's absolutely fine. My only caveat would be understand that this is being adopted at a rapid pace, and so that's kind of being set by the market. And our advice to companies, larger companies that are being disrupted, is don't fall too far behind.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chad and Lauren, for those questions. We want to thank you so much for spending the last hour with us on this Thursday afternoon. We hope that it was